I'm Carla Reeves, and this is Differently, a podcast where we explore the ins and outs of what becomes possible when we're willing to think, do, and show up differently to the moments of our everyday lives. Do you feel like a juggler trying to keep all the balls of your life in the air? Today on the podcast, I want to invite you into the head and heart of my client and friend, Lyndsay Clements. She's the owner of Ellen Grace Marketing, a boutique agency in Flagstaff, Arizona. She's passionate and an expert at helping business owners grow their sales through solid marketing strategies and incredible planning tools, which I have experienced firsthand. Her company works with some of the most innovative small product and service companies around. She's also married, raising two beautiful girls, and juggling the operating and growing of a thriving business, her own well-being, and making sure she's present for the moments of her life along the way. Lyndsay is a woman on a mission and someone who is seeking to blend work and life in a way that matters. When you're a hyperachiever, this comes with its challenges, as she will share, but her commitment to something bigger keeps her coming back to the practice of navigating her days with intention and purpose. Meet Lyndsay. Hey, Lyndsay, welcome to Differently.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited you're here too. I've been thinking about this for a while. So for everybody listening, why don't you just share who you are and what you're up to and what stage of life you're in, and just paint us a picture.
Sure. So my name is Lyndsay Clements, and I am the owner of Ellen Grace Marketing. We are a boutique marketing firm that supports other businesses with their strategy and execution. I guess it's been almost 7 years now I've been in business, and I come from the corporate background world and just got really burnt out, I never thought I would do anything different. I was going to climb that corporate ladder my whole life. And one day it just kind of hit me, like literally. And then, I did this major pivot, which we can talk a little bit about, but it's been a journey. It's been a ride. And I'm just grateful that we got connected when we did. And you've been a big help along the way these last couple of years.
I'm so glad our paths crossed too. And I love about our relationship that we, you've experienced my work, I've experienced your work. We've collaborated together as business owners and done a retreat together and like all of that. So I love that we can talk about all of those things. But so keep going. You're also a mom and you have children, and you tell us some of the things you love to do because you have a beautiful lifestyle.
Oh, thank you. I know, of course, I leave that stuff out, right? Let's get down to the business side. Yes, I have
hyperachiever, work focused.
Right?
I can relate.
It's baby steps, right? So I have two beautiful little girls who are 10 and 7. Their middle names are actually Ellen and Grace, which is the name of my business, Ellen Grace Marketing. We live in Flagstaff, Arizona with my husband and our two dogs. And we're just enjoying life up here in Mountain Town. And my husband's it's interesting. He's the stay-at-home parent, and he has been early on since my first, my 10-year-old was born. So that's been an interesting, dynamic, and as we navigate all the things. We love living up in northern Arizona.
And you guys love to ski. I love when I see your pictures and you're heading off to the slopes. Like, do you do that on Fridays during the school year when there's snow, or how does that look?
Well, so it's funny, depending on the school that your kids are in, there's half days, Wednesdays and Fridays, depending on their years. So we try to avoid weekends and Wednesdays and Fridays because Tuesdays and Thursdays there's no one up there. So we can just escape.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we usually, my husband and I will try to do a weekly, get up there for a handful of hours and then get back in time to pick up the girls. And then occasionally, we'll pull them out of school here and there or go on some ski trips. But we live, 20 minutes door to door to the mountain. So we've been just trying to take advantage of it. We lived in San Francisco for a decade, and then we were down in Phoenix for another 5 or 6 years. So I think just now kind of being up here a little bit more remote, we're trying to take advantage of all those things. So it's fun. Do you ski?
I love that.
Did we?
What did you say?
I said, do you ski? Are you a skier?
I do. Yeah. I was just going to tell you that when I see your pictures, it brings back so many memories because my sister lived in Yosemite. My oldest sister, she was like 12 years older than me, and she lived in Yosemite when I was growing up. And so we would take ski trips regularly as a family, and we would go to Yosemite, super small ski resort. I think there were 2 lifts, but we would always go during the week. My parents owned a restaurant, so we would always have to go during the week, and there would be nobody up there. And it was just the best. We would just have the lifts to ourselves and the slopes to ourselves, and it was so easy to find everybody on the few runs that they had. And I just have such great memories, and we've since taken our boys skiing and, made memories with them. And yeah, it's near and dear to my heart for sure.
Well, next season.
We should do a ski day one day. That would be fun.
We're going to do that. We will definitely do that. Well, yeah, it's part of, I think as they're trying to create the life that you want, right? And there has been sacrifices, or not even sacrifices, but just doing things differently and trying to carve that out. And now really trying to take advantage of the fact that, we don't have the 2-week vacation time. It's, there's more flexibility, but, with that also comes other challenges. So,
challenges, right. A new set of problems.
Which is why we have people like you to help us talk through all that.
So you and we first met, I think I had spoken on Time, right? And then you reached out and we worked together. So give the listeners a sense of what had you interested in coaching and what had you initially reach out? What was the challenge you were facing?
Yeah, so you're right. It was, I think Heather had brought you into her group and you had presented Time Camp or maybe it wasn't Time Camp at the time. It was just a snippet of that. And I think it just really resonated with me because we were in the middle of a pandemic. My kids were at home 24/7, my husband and and working from home. They were in my space, and I just didn't know how to navigate that. I wasn't sure when the workday ended and when I should be a mom. And anytime I'd go down and get a drink of water, it felt like I was getting sucked into just, getting off track. And so, which, in knowing me, I'm such a type A, I gotta, that worker bee. And that's kind of what I had really prided myself on. And anyways, I reached out to you, I think, because the presentation you had given just shed light on how I could think about things differently and how I could let go of some of those things I was holding on to so tight. I mean, I remember when we first had our conversation, you broached the idea of turning off my email notifications. And I was like, you're crazy. I can't do that. And it's been over a year that I don't get any email notifications, and I've not missed one email, I mean, it's okay. So it really, I think the reason I reached out to you initially was just okay, there's got to be a better way because I can't do more, right? And I don't want to do more, and I want to enjoy life. And, my kids are getting older, we're getting older. And at the end of the day, you work so hard to create this life in a certain way, but if you're not enjoying it, what's the point, So I just felt like I needed more of what you were putting out. So yeah, I think we did some sessions for a while. We did sessions together, and then just continued to stay connected after that. And then Time Camp as well too was another place that we worked together. So
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, because I can talk about it too, is just, this idea of, I actually just did an episode on, are you a hyperachiever? Because I am, and I think you are. And, but there's a lot of strengths that come with being a hyperachiever, right? You get a lot done. You know how to get stuff done. You've created a lot of success in your life by being a hyperachiever. You get a lot of enjoyment out of your work. And at the same time, there's a cost when we overuse that strength, right? And so being a hyperachiever, being type A, being a business owner, like there is this constant pull of, because there's always something to be done, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
so
always
share a
something
little
to be
bit about, yeah. No, just share a little bit of, take us into your head, like around that.
I don't know if you want to get into my head. Well,
Oh,
I mean,
do.
and then I know you've been in there a lot. I mean, the irony of it all too, and maybe some people can relate to this, is like my husband's the complete opposite, and so that in and of itself,
and mine too. My
right?
husband's the complete opposite too. Yes.
Oh my gosh, Carla, it's so funny. Yesterday we picked up our girls from school together, which we usually don't. One of us goes and the other one goes, but we had to pick up a car afterwards. And the person that was checking, like you come up and you give them, your daughter's names or your kids' names. And the teacher that was checking us out, he said to my husband, he goes, I just have to compliment you. You were just the calmest parent when you come to pick up your kids every day. And I'm like dying laughing because I'm like, I know that he would never say that to me. But, Mickey's in the driver's seat and he's like, you're just so calm and laid back. And like, I'm like, yes, you have no idea. He is. And so it was funny because that's just how he is. But yeah, so I guess that got me off track. So yeah, I think just one of the things that you taught me, and this is not really answering your question, but kind of the same vein, is like, it's okay to let go of some of those things, because those things that are so strong in our personalities and our traits and our behaviors, like they don't go away. It's not like all of a sudden I'm going to become lazy and I'm going to miss deadlines and do things. Like that just doesn't happen because we don't let that happen. But it's almost like giving us this permission not to worry about it, right? And like, because we're not worried about it, that headspace and that time and energy gets put into doing nothing or doing, one of the questions you asked me, like, if you had more time in the day, what would you do? And I know one of the things was not listen to podcasts on 2 times their speed, right? Which is, my husband will laugh at me. He gets in my car.
That was one of your answers.
That was one of my answers. And I'm sorry, I know.
I told my husband that I do that too. He thought that was the craziest thing. Like, why would you do that? It's because we're hyperachievers.
So Carla, you're speaking very slow right now. Usually you're a lot faster at speaking because you're 2 times the speed. No, but Mickey will get in my car or we'll get in the car together and my phone will just hook up to Bluetooth and whatever podcast was on will pop on and it's 2 times. And he just looks at me like the eyes get wide, like, oh my gosh.
Oh, that just cracks me up. That just cracks me up.
But I think, one of the things that you really ingrained in me was just, I have to force myself to take breaks, right? I have to block out time. And now my calendar in the morning, like I don't start anything until usually like 9:00, sometimes 10. But that morning break is me time. And I make sure that I don't neglect that. And then lunch times too, which it's not rocket science, but I also feel like you just like lit up something inside me that allowed me to see that it was in my control and that I really had the tools to make a change. And it really wasn't that hard. It's not like you're saying, oh, you have to go do all these things. It's like, no, we just are going to give yourself some breaks. And because of that, I think, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's really simple. The stuff that I teach my clients is really simple, but it's not always easy to integrate. And that's, that's where the magic happens, is when you actually start doing it and integrating it in your life. Because we all know it. We know it intellectually, but part of the work is like kind of challenging and questioning like what you've always done and why you've always done it that way. And these, kind of like helping you challenge those rules that you created for yourself, or saying, well, what if you didn't have to have email notifications? Like, I know your email is going to get handled whether you have notifications or not. But those notifications create urgency and stress and distraction that isn't really necessary in allowing you to operate at your best. So it's like just a simple change like that can have like a ripple impact. Or you talk about like taking time for yourself in the morning, and like, how does that impact your energy or ability to focus later? Or like, how does that impact your life?
Yeah. So the morning, giving that space is actually the hardest for me. And because I do want to, like, I want to do it. I'd much rather give myself
jump in.
I just want to jump in and get the day going. And so that's the one I've really not struggled with, but it's just not easy for me. Like I will actually sit down and have a cup of coffee, or, do my workouts or do whatever. But yeah, it's what you mentioned, it's these rules that are in our heads, but where do these rules come from? And I do think, having spent so many years in corporate America, working for companies that you show up at 8 or 9 and there's plenty of people that are there before you, or you leave at 6 o'clock at night and there's people that are staying longer, and that starts to kind of create this hamster wheel inside of you. And so it's still in there, and there's days when it's not good and other days when it's really good. But it's just, yeah, I think talking it out, right? Talking to people like you, having my husband who's the opposite, we really navigate that, and it's interesting at times. But just, yeah, it is. It's such a mindset, and it's a muscle you have to keep exercising, because so easily it can just. I think it'll always be something. I think that's something we talked about. I'm like, so when do I like master this? When can I check that box and move on to something else? And you're like, no. Like, that's not how it works. So,
yeah, I'm still practicing too. It's just like a couple weeks ago, I really noticed, like, at the end, it was like, I don't know, I think it was 5 o'clock, and I sat down to talk to Quentin and hang out for a few minutes. And then, but in the back of my head, it was like, you need to get back and get a few more things done. And like, it was literally like this little monster on my shoulder, like, you need to go get a few more things done because you'll feel better. And like, it was the first time I really like caught it and was like, ew, like it was almost creepy, like, because it's so convincing. And I sat back and I'm like, wait a minute, like, am I really going to feel better? Because when I keep working later into the night, like I end up getting tired, and then I go from work like almost right to bed, and it does, like, my energy isn't the best the next day, and then you repeat that, and I can slip into those habits of working too much because I love it. I really love it. Mm-hmm. And so it's easy for me to overwork, and I'm practicing now, like really paying more and more close attention to my energy, because I can tell when I'm starting to be able to really be able to tell when I'm in that overworking mode, so that I can step away. Because the more I step away and the more I take breaks and the more I take time to rejuvenate and have fun and laugh, or, go skiing, whatever it is, right? Skiing is for me. I come back more energized. The quality of my work is better. I can get more done in less time. Like it really all does fuel your work too. And I had to convince myself of that. Like I had to do it, kind of force myself to do it at first, knowing that it was going to give back to everything in my life.
Yeah, no, it's weird how that happens, right? You see a big change, and that monster that you described, oh my gosh, that's so real. I mean,
you
I
have
think
one
a lot
of those?
of people. Oh yeah. You know what? One of the things that, as you were talking, so my kids come home. So we moved in November, and the house before, I had an office and I could shut the door. And so I think that, but now my office is sort of like this sunroom that's off the living room. And so when they come through the door at 3:30 or 4 or whatever time it is, like, I mean, I can still work, but it's also distracting. And so I think that almost that's been a positive in a sense. Like, I know that my day is kind of over at that point in time. So it's a condensed work day. And if anything, like, my business is more successful. I have more clients, like, we're doing that. We're servicing more, we're delivering more, because I think, yeah, that condensed day, whether it's, I mean, some days it's like 10 to 3, which, I mean, I think in the past, you're like, can you just block off? Can you just work for a shorter time? And I'm like, no, I can't. And now I kind of have to. And it actually is better, you know? And I didn't really think about that until, yeah, right? That you can, so it's true. Even though I feel like I work a lot more, but it's just all in your head, I guess, at times.
Yeah. I love that. So, trying to think if there was anything else we want to cover inside of our work together, but I would love for you to dive more into how you blend work and life, and what are your challenges today, and kind of how are you navigating some of that? I mean, you've shared a little bit.
Yeah. You know, I think I'm about 7 years in business, and for so long, like, you're trying to make it grow, right? And trying to just see where it's gonna all fall, and how does it grow? We've had lots of conversations about this, because a lot of, like, the strategy I do and the work that you do, you can't duplicate it or hire other people to do it. And so how do you make that grow? And I've just recently gotten to a point where it feels like I'm just breathing, you know, it feels good. It's like at this, like, really stable spot. I've got great independent contractors that are helping serve our clients. Like, we're at this, and now I'm like, how do I not grow it more, but, like, how do I get out of it in 10 years? Like, do I really want to be doing this in 10 years? Or what does it look like in 10 years? Because, you know, I'd like to think, like, at some point I'm going to be able to retire. And I think as entrepreneurs, that's a really, you know, it's just something I hadn't ever crossed my mind was, I don't want to say the exit plan, because I'm not planning on exiting, but just how do you continue to evolve and learn and do all these things, but maybe not having to do them on a more regular daily basis. So, you know, that's where my head's at right now, if that makes sense. You know? Yeah.
Well, I love that, because it's, I mean, my work and my mission in my own personal life, and then in the way that I help clients, is to really teach people how to be innovators of your everyday life, right? So that we're constantly creating, because that's, to me, that's what the work is and what it's taken is, like, you know, inside of our work together, you get a set of tools that you can, like, reapply. And I got those tools years and years ago in my life, but you have to keep reapplying them. Like, when the kids were little, and, like, trying to create a great marriage and have little children, that required a certain, you know, mindset instead of things that we were doing to make sure that happened. But it required that we're constantly adjusting that through the different stages so that we can still thrive and take care of our relationship and take care of our kids and take care of our work. And I mean, there's a lot we're juggling, right? And so we've kind of been on this journey of always creating, and what's the next phase of your life? And it sounds like you're looking at the next phase of your life, and, like, what do we need to do today to kind of move that direction?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, like, I had listened to a podcast that was about multiple income streams, you know, and it's not necessarily like, oh, I have to make all this money in some other way, but it is like, how do we, especially with, I mean, your kids now, like, you guys are almost empty nesters, you know, your youngest is about to graduate, and, you know, now you've got all that, you know, so yeah, it's just a new phase that you're trying to navigate and figure out. So I haven't come up with that answer, but that's sort of where I'm at. But I love what we're doing, and the clients we're working with, and the work that we're doing. And, you know, my mission has always been to, I guess, like, empower the little guys, you know, coming from the corporate world. We did a lot of things right, but we did a lot of things wrong. And then you look at these smaller businesses, and they're small and nimble and can pivot and can make put out an email tomorrow or change their strategy on a dime. And if they could just think a little bit like the bigger guys and utilize some of those tools. So that's really it's been fun, right? To kind of take some of this structure and put it in the hands of the worker bees, the people that are like just, driving every day. And so it's fun. I get really excited and fired up and love the brands we work with. I love that.
And I want to share a little bit about your work and what you do, because I've gotten to experience your work too. And Lyndsay has the marketing roadmap. And why don't you share a little bit about that, and then I'll share my experience of it. But tell people what your marketing roadmap is, because it's amazing. They need to know about it.
Oh, well, it's at the very simple level. It's just a high level plan of your next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days of your marketing. But it's a tool that gives clarity and gives you confidence and really just allows you to communicate to your team or to other people that are helping, whether you have a VA or suppliers. If we're working with product-based companies, you just get to see kind of the business working at a high level. But we, when I worked in larger businesses, we would maybe have to grand open 20 stores in one day, across the country. And so we used versions of a marketing roadmap to make sure the signage was there and all the email and social, everything, all the moving parts. But then I'd also utilize a marketing roadmap to plan a really small segment of our loyalty program. So it's just really a tool, but for someone who is trying to manage all the things, right? If you're wearing all those hats within your business, and trying to figure out what to post next on social media and what to do, it's hard because you're in it, and sometimes you don't remember what you did yesterday and you don't know what's coming tomorrow. And to sit down and write an email feels super overwhelming. And so it's really just letting you take a step back and seeing everything together to say, okay, I'm sitting down to craft this message or this post or whatever it is you're doing, and you can see what's been talked about before and what's coming after. And then also, how do you utilize those topics and the content and repurpose them and make sure that Carla, you sit on as a podcaster and as a great writer, like you have so much good content that you probably just get, you can think about what your topic is for this week or this month, but like all that other stuff is gold, is evergreen. And so being able to uncover that and bring it back to life so that everyone can keep, experiencing it is really what the roadmap does. I'm probably not doing a good job explaining it, but
no, you are. Well, you sat down with me when we did our business retreat and helped me kind of create a roadmap. And I use that all the time. And for me, you opened my eyes because I had this idea that my content always had to be inspired, like in the moment. Like if I planned it out ahead of time, like it wouldn't be as real or as authentic. Like that's what I thought. And so that's what kept me in this trap of, you got to create it like on that day. And you really helped me to like start to see that it's inspired when I create it. When I share it isn't always that's, important. And I can always leave space for those inspired posts, but at least I have this like plan that's in place and scheduled. And I can't tell you, like I'm still working to get 90 days out. Like I haven't reached that milestone of like having 90 days. Like that is my dream. But I have experienced having a month or so out, and the calm that brings to my working life, and just knowing that it's all created and it's all scheduled, and I can go in, that week and make sure that it still feels inspired and relevant and make any tweaks. But that has been a game changer for me. Oh. And you also showed me how to take like the podcast theme for the week and then tie things to that and repurpose that. So I'm not creating everything from scratch, because that was exhausting.
It is exhausting. And I think if you don't know, that's what you assume everyone else is doing, right? And and yes, like you don't want to just regurgitate the same message, but you can talk about something in so many different ways with different imagery, with different calls to action, and it can just,
yes.
And so it's really just leveraging that and saving you time too, because your messaging and what your core pillars are, those just need to be reiterated to people over and over again so that they know, they're very clear on kind of who you are and what you represent and stand for. And I think so. The marketing roadmap, even though it goes out 90 days, I would recommend only creating content for the next 30. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have your topics laid out and, maybe for you're scheduling interviews and things in advance, but the actual creation of it, I think that's great to be 30 days out. And, the fact that too, you can schedule it out and then take a step back, and we'd say like, let's just let it breathe. Right. Because then all of a sudden you look at it and you're like, oh, wait a minute, like, let's make a change here, or something does come up that's relevant that needs to be addressed. Now you can massage it, bump it out. So the marketing roadmap is definitely a working document. And in most cases, we're doing a rolling 90 days. So as soon as, the 1 month passes, we're still kind of hanging that carrot out there so we can see what's coming, down the road for.
Well, and it's also helped me to be more thoughtful about, because when you sit down to plan it, you are thinking about all the different components that are happening in your life and in your business, and you can tie in really thoughtful, important pieces where before it felt like I was kind of reactionary and like, oh, I got to get this out. And so I feel like it's actually contrary to what I thought. I'm actually able to be more thoughtful and more intentional about it.
Yeah. It's almost, I remember a while ago we did like the Dave Ramsey, I forget what it's called, the budgeting, where I forget what they call it, but it's like you think by like having a budget, now all of a sudden you're in this constraint, but it actually is very rewarding, and it gives you that sense of like breath, because you're like, okay, like this feels good now. This feels like I can execute what's in front of me, and there's some boundaries around it. So, and it's also, part of the roadmap and is also looking at the analytics and looking at the data, right? Because a lot of times we get sucked into certain platforms, like Instagram. Instagram's really fun and dynamic, and there's lots of engagement and all those things. But at the end of the day, like what are you trying to achieve? And a lot of times we'll see Instagram driving a lot of traffic to a client's website, but maybe LinkedIn or maybe emails are really the ones that are converting, right? Where the people are spending more time, they're driving better quality traffic. And then at the end of the day, those people are filling out forms or converting, into their market basket for it better. So it's just, taking that into consideration, like, okay, where do we want to spend our resources? Not that we're going to turn something off, but maybe it makes sense to think about our emails a little bit more, or being more thoughtful about how we're showing up on LinkedIn, those types of things. So, but having a plan is the first place to start. And then, actually the first place is to measure what's been working, and then you build the plan. But if you're just getting started, having a plan and then going back and looking at the data can really help calm it down too, and not feel like you have to be doing all the things.
I love this idea that structure creates freedom, because it is so like such a it's like a I don't want to say, it's like the Chinese finger trap, it's like, it's not what you think it is, but you think it's going to be confining, and it's actually liberating. And I find that true in so many aspects in life, that structure actually creates freedom. And I mean, you kind of even with your structure of like your kids getting home at 3:30, like that's a structure that all of a sudden like liberated something in your world, because now you have to kind of operate inside of that. And now it's freed up something else. I really believe that it does create freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's almost like, how can we put boundaries in place, even if we don't need to have them in place? And that may help to. And I can see that playing a lot with my kids. Like all of a sudden, it's time to read, and I'm tired, and I go upstairs, and I'm like, okay, we're going to read for 20 minutes. And by putting that in place, like I'm a better mom and a better reader, and I'm having more fun with the book, because it's not like this thing that I'm going to fall asleep, halfway through. Yeah. Not that, I mean, I don't love my kids, but it just putting some structure around it helps, us all enjoy that.
That's so true. Yeah.
I love that.
So what, maybe this will kind of segue to our close. Like what is really making a difference in blending work and life for you now? Like you just moved and your business is at a new level since you and I work together. Like what in your life is working as far as making a meaningful blend? Because I think more than ever, we're all having to blend work and life now, in ways that we never imagined. But what helps you? What structures do you have that really support you?
I mean, it's easy for me to like talk about the business side. I think the personal is where I'm like, feel I have a lot of work to do there. On the business side, just checklists and processes. I mean, I have a team of, depending on the client, 2 to 6 different independent contractors. And we don't talk a lot real time. And I was having a conversation with one of them the other day, and I'm like, do you feel like should we be checking in more? I want to make sure you don't feel. And she's like, no, your notes and your, like everything, just like the baton gets handed off really well. Like we have standard operating procedures. We know what we're supposed to do. We always put things in this bucket, I mean, it's just a process that's really that's working. So I feel like that gives me a lot of freedom to not feel, because there was a point in time where I was looking at all the details, right? And it was really hard for me to step away. But now that I've spent the time to do the due diligence, to put those procedures in place, I feel like I do have the freedom, to be able to take a step back, and I think and I know you were asking the question, like, how do I navigate the two? I tend to put them into different areas, but I think with my kids, it's just as they get older, it's empowering them to make decisions and to have these. Oh, well, this is really interesting. So I don't know if it's interesting, but for Santa Claus brought my girls alarm clocks. And so now like they get so excited about what color the alarm clock's going to go off in the morning and what time. They get to choose between like this range of time, what time they want the setting to go off, and their bedrooms are upstairs. And Carla, seriously, since we got back from break, which was in January, there's not been once, outside of them being sick and maybe not getting out of bed because they were sick, that they are not coming down on their own. They're 10 and 7, brushing their teeth, fully dressed, and coming down by, a certain time to have breakfast and start the day, where we were struggling with that before. Like we were having to go and wake them up. And so, I think, wow. You said structure creates freedom. So this is structure, right? Like we're having an alarm, huge. And you know what? You get to choose though. There's still some choice. Like you get to choose what color it is and what the sound is and what time, right?
Well, and yes. No, keep going.
Oh, and so between like 6:30 and 6:45 is sort of when they need to set the alarm floor. And so they both chose different times, and it's just cute. They feel like they got to choose, which, they did, but not really.
But you also gave them independence. Mm-hmm. Like that is a skill that is so important. And I think that's such a good example of a structure that has helped probably, it's also freed you up, you and your husband up, right? Because you're not having to manage that. You're empowering them to manage themselves. And I will tell you, Lyndsay, like Shane is just turned 18, I told you, and he's a master with his alarm clock and managing himself. And I don't know, like, I can't credit it to like something that we did that I remember, other than maybe just managing our own selves and modeling that, that he is so good. Like he goes to school full time. He is on the golf team. He works when he's not golfing or going to school. Like he has a very full schedule, and his alarm clock is he's just on it. He's never been late to work in a year. Like he's just really on it. And I think that's a hard skill to teach, but you're empowering your girls to start that at such a young age. And I think will serve them forever.
Yeah, thank you. It's hard though, as parents, you want to just do it for them, and so that's
for them.
Mm-hmm. But my daughter plays on a traveling soccer team, and she has practice 3 nights a week, and needs to have her jersey washed, and like the first time it wasn't washed, it's because she just put it in her hamper. We're not doing laundry every day, and so now she knows like she brings her laundry bag down like after she gets home from practice, and we'll do it for her, if it's there, but we're not going to go fishing for it. So yeah, it's it's important. I love the independence. So yeah, I guess that's really just, as somebody who likes to control, it's been really hard, to give up that, but it's actually been so rewarding, whether it's letting my team, and even, I've never done hourly work, with the exception of an intern I have right now. Everyone else on my team it's based on deliverables, and we've come up with a price that we feel is, representative of probably an hourly wage or whatever. But I've always thought that if they can figure out a way to do it better or be more efficient, I don't want to, have that mean they're not going to make it.
Penalize them for that.
Penalize them. Yeah. So I'm like, hey, be resourceful, figure it out. This is when it's due. This is what the expectation is. And like, you're going to get compensated. And like, and everyone's really appreciative. It's not, they don't feel like they have to, anyways, it's worked out well, but there is a level of independence there too, of just trusting and seeing it come back. And
I like that approach a lot. When Quentin was managing people, and we had an Ace Hardware store years ago, and his philosophy was always that freedom creates loyalty. Like that was his philosophy of managing people, that you give them a lot of freedom and it makes them incredibly loyal. And that was always his experience. And that's what you're talking about too. I love that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how he's influenced a lot of the way we parent our children. And we have always given our kids, like, even though it's hard for me, because I want to do those things for them. I want to do my mom jobs. Even still, like, I laugh at myself sometimes because I'm still learning to let go of things I don't need to do for an 18-year-old. But yeah, just letting go, right? And giving freedom. And it's really given our boys skills that I can see them now. I can see them coming to life now in their lives, and being able to manage their own lives. Because I think as parents, sometimes we want our kids to be independent and happy and healthy and be able to operate on their own and launch into the world. But sometimes our behaviors are contradictory of that. And sometimes it's like a blind spot. You can't see it.
Absolutely. No, because you're right there, and you're going to want to jump in and save the day. But yeah, I think, I don't know if it's a male female thing, because Mickey's definitely better at that, giving the freedom or setting up the parameters and letting them kind of navigate within those parameters. So it's, but to your point, I think seeing how independent your boys are and the benefits and payoff that it has by, creating that in the beginning is just really important too. So
so fun to watch. Yeah. Okay. So tell us what you're most inspired about right now in work or in personal life, and then tell us how people can find out more about what you're doing.
Oh my gosh. What am I most inspired? I think just like enjoying life, right? It is just, my girls are at a fun age where spring is in the air and summertime, and we're just gonna, navigate it all. And with work, especially, I feel like it's gotten to a point where it's churning on its own, and it just feels like good space to breathe, So just gonna embrace that. And,
let it breathe. I love that. That's your, that's your, I read that blog of yours. I loved that. Let it breathe. So maybe that's the theme all of your life right now. I just did a post on it. Yeah. Maybe it's just stuck in my head. I know. It's, well, and we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but I
my Instagram got hacked recently, and like I learned so much from it. And one of the things was just like, reinforcing slowing down, right? Just taking a pause, and it's okay that things don't get addressed right away, I think, and so just, letting it breathe and letting it sit. That's not anything, earth shattering, but it is something just to remember, about. So, but yeah, as far as like, go ahead.
My dad at the end of his life, he sent all of us kids an email, and he was a man of very few words. He never gave advice, but in this email, he made like a list of things and kind of like advice. And on two of the things on the list were slow down in all capital letters. And I will never forget that, because I know at that stage of his life, like he saw like, what are we doing? Just spinning so fast and moving so quickly and trying to get so much done, and like, just slow down.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that. So I think that's beautiful.
I remember you telling me about that, and it was not like my dad had a stroke about 8 years ago, and he's still with us, and he's mentally, he's there, he has a harder time articulating, but you can tell now, like he used to be a lot like me with, a drive and ambition and just constantly going, and kind of like the mayor of everywhere he went. And now I can just tell, like, he's like, no, enjoy, don't worry about it. It's everything, things have just, and it's great too, because I think these are men who we learned a lot from and respect, and to hear them say it means a lot. And I think that's a really good reminder I have a voicemail from my dad saying something along those lines, so it's fun to have that.
I have like, I don't know, like 16 voicemails from my mom and dad that I just keep them on there. I keep saving them because they're priceless to go back and listen to now that they're not here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Last week I was with a girlfriend who, her dad passed away last year. And something came up. I was like, how come your voicemail is always full? And she like turned it to me and went through, and it was dad, dad, dad. And she goes, but Lyndsay, like, you told me about your dad and how you wish you had saved more. And that was 8 years ago. And so she's just been saving them because he got sick a few years ago. So it was just like, oh, okay, I get it. I totally get it. So yeah, special.
Well, and I have a couple of my mom before she got dementia, and so I can hear her like before she ever had that. And like, they're priceless. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what she wants you to remember too.
Yes. Where can people find out more about all that you're up to?
Oh, I am very active on Instagram, and it's Ellen Grace Marketing. Also on LinkedIn as well too. And then my website is Ellen Grace Marketing. I'm sure we can put the links in the show notes.
Yes, they will all be there. And so be sure to check out what she's doing and all the good stuff she's up to. Yay. And thank you so much for spending your Friday with me. I loved this conversation.
So Me too. Thanks for having me on. I know we've talked about this, so it's good to make it happen.
So fun. You're always welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Differently. I hope it stirred your thinking, and I invite you to take one inspired action from something that stood out to you. If you want to hear more conversations like this, hit follow on your favorite podcast app. And if this episode could impact someone you know, please pass it along. Remember, new episodes drop weekly. See you next week.